Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today I've got two sets of top 8 deck lists for you. We're going to be looking at two different events, the first of which came from America, courtesy of the Player Network. It was on the 31st of August and had 62 players. And our second event is from Sweden, the Malmo Game Week on the 1st of September. There were 64 players. I managed to catch a little bit of this because Spessy went over to stream some of it, which was great to see, and it looked like a really fun event. We've got a mixed bag today. Some of today's lists are going to be very usual suspect, very cookie cutter, but then we've got some spicy variations, and then one list in particular, which is probably the most interesting list I've looked at in set 5 so far, and we will be starting off with that. A quick shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, then check out Cardmarket. But let's jump straight in and take a look at some lists. Alright, let's start off with all the lists from the Player Network. In first place, we have Mika with some Ruby Sapphire items. Now, I spent most of yesterday looking at this list. I was going to record this video yesterday, and I spent so long really thinking about this list and doing some research and just kind of mesmerized by it, and then I got distracted by other things. But yeah, this is super, super interesting. So, let's first draw our attention to our very unique items. First of all, we've got one copy of the Poisoned Apple, 3-cost uninkable item. Take a bite, pay 1 and banish this item. Exert chosen character. If a princess character is chosen, banish her instead. So for princesses, this is essentially a 4-cost Dragonfire, although of course you can play this on one turn and then actually use the effect on a following turn. Let's look at all the relevant princesses. So of course there will be others, but these are the princesses that I feel are the most relevant in meta, and characters that I feel that you would feel like you had a good trade by playing this Poisoned Apple. Of course there is only the 1-drop here, which obviously isn't going to feel like a great trade, but if you're preventing a shift or a song, then I think that's just fine. And then Ariel Bell, Tiana Kida, the Amethyst Bell, the Steel Ariel, and of course the Stout-Hearted. I think these are all perfectly good targets for the Poisoned Apple. Next, we'll stick with Chapter 1 for now. We've got the Sword of Truth. 4-cost uninkable item. Banish this item. Banish chosen villain character. So this is my list of what I think are the most relevant villains. Of course, there's a few missing, like the Queen is here, and also the 1-drop could be on here just to interrupt that. But yeah, that's an awful lot of villains. I think especially Tamatoa, Maleficent are going to come up all the time. Sea Witch Queen, the Floodborn Queen. I think those are like S-tier targets for this Sword of Truth. And then everything else on here can be decent enough. And then from set 4, we have the Plank, 3-cost uninkable. You pay 2 and banish this item to choose one of the following abilities. Either banish chosen hero character or ready chosen villain character. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. So these are all of our relevant heroes in meta, obviously some more than others. The Stout-Hearted, the Sisu, the Beast, the Robin Hood, Maui, Rapunzel, Prince Naveen. I think these are all like S-tier targets, and then a lot of stuff on here can be like perfectly reasonable. Worth noting as well that obviously the list of princesses is far shorter, and a lot of those princesses also fall under hero. So I feel like the Plank is going to be quite consistently online, and of course the added effect of ready a villain, of which we have many. And of those villains, pretty much the main character here is Prince John Goldlover. 4-cost inkable, 3/4, quest for 1, and beautiful, lovely taxes. Exert, play an item from your hand or discard with cost 5 or less for free, exerted. Now, before I go on, I want to give a shout out to the Forbidden Mountain, fellow content creators, who managed to track down Mika and get some thoughts on them from them about their deck. I'm not going to read out the whole thing. This will be linked below, and I highly recommend you go check this out yourself and read the whole thing. But I will just read this first section, the main objective. The main premise of the deck is to take advantage of Prince John Goldlover to play a game of Lorcana on an axis that is different from anything else in the game. In order to do this, we are mostly playing items that can be used while exerted to get immediate value when they get brought back to either control the opponent's board state or refill our hand, without having to actually use any resources from the hand. Eventually, because the opponent needs to use resources from hand to progress the game state, while we don't have to expend as much, you reach a board state where you can answer almost everything the opponent does for the rest of the game while slowly winning the game at the the same time. Again, I'd recommend go. It's not that long, but like again, I don't want to take away from the Forbidden Mountain. You should go and check it out yourself, read the whole thing. But yeah, let's continue to point out some synergy. So as mentioned, we want to utilize items that can be used while already exerted. So the Poisoned Apple, the Plank, and the Sword of Truth do not need to exert to use their ability. So the fact that they are brought in by Prince John exerted doesn't matter. We can normally use them straight away. Let's look at the other items. We've got 4 Porpsicle here to help us draw, and there are 4 Flabbersham up there to help us draw. 1 copy of Maui's Fishhook that can be really useful. 1 copy of Shield of Virtue to help keep characters safe. And great synergy with the Prince John to reuse the ability. And there's a Triton that we'll get to in a moment. And we're running 2 copies of Potion of Might. 1 cost inkable item. You pay 1 and banish this item. Chosen character gets +3 strength this turn. If a villain character is chosen, they get +4 strength instead. Before we discuss that too much, we must draw our attention to Triton. 3 cost uninkable, 3 quests for 1. Consigned the Depths. Exert, banish one of your items, gain 3 lore. Running 2 copies. So this is one of our ways of having late game reach and just hopefully winning the game out of nowhere potentially, especially if we can re-ready with Shield of Virtue. And there's 3 copies of LeFou here as well to potentially use this multiple times in a turn. So for that reason, we definitely want a high count of 1-drop items. Obviously the 4 Porpsicle absolutely staple. I think the 1 Shield of Virtue has a lot of synergy here. I'd actually like to see this at 2. But the 2 Potion of Might, it's another 1 cost item. You could also make an argument for the Ruby Chromacon, which is exert to just have 1 character gain 1 strength, which can certainly fix a lot of maths. Maui is now taking out Castle, and if you just look at all these characters, suddenly they are trading with things they weren't previously. But this +4 strength on a villain seems super relevant because it's going to get so many more of your characters into range to one-shot things. So anything with 4 or 3 willpower, which is quite a lot of this already, you're now dealing with anything Castle and below, and that's also Cinderella Stout-Hearted and Chenpo the Bodyguard. And even if you're just boosting this 1-drop King Candy, that's still hitting for 6. That's still taking out a lot of the meta. So I actually kind of rate the potion more than I would the Ruby Chromacon in a deck like this. I just mentioned King Candy, and we are indeed running a 4-3 line, the 1-drop being a 2-2, and the Floodborn being a 5-cost uninkable 3-3 quest for 2. You can shift for 3, and changing the code. When you play this character, you may draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. I know a lot of players that were really rating this early set, and I was to a degree as well, but I just think its uninkability is so unreasonable. But this deck desperately needs to find these key items early to be able to use them and then get our engine going to recycle them with Prince John. So we absolutely need to be able to find them. And again, there's some like uninkables here that maybe we would like to be able to put one from our hands at the bottom of the deck. But yeah, something that's cool is if we play on curve without ramping, we do have T-Pose in here, but if we assume we didn't ramp, and we play Prince John on 4, then assuming he survives the turn, which I think is optimistic, but came first in this tournament, so clearly put in the work. But yeah, if you get to 4, play him, and then on 5, you can play any of these removal items by paying ink, and then exert the Prince John and immediately put it back into play. And if it was Poisoned Apple or Sword of Truth that you played, then you've still got 1 ink left to play a Porpsicle or just any of your 1-drop items. But even the Plank, turn 5, pay 3, and then pay the other 2, banish a hero, exert Prince John, put the Plank back on the board, ready to deal with a future threat. On paper, sounds super cool, the idea of just being able to recycle your removal options to control the board, and of course when you're getting back Popsicles, you're drawing extra cards. Like, my issue is just how often is this Prince John surviving long enough to exert? But that being said, I said the same thing about the 3-drop Queen from Ursa's Return, which we saw win an event. That was last format. But still, there is a slight difference. That is a 3 cost. So it's 1 turn sooner and 1 ink sooner for your opponent to potentially have removal options. But I would still fear coming up against any Ruby Sapphire deck that was playing ice blocks. Because as soon as you put this down, then they might be able to Medusa already, depending on if they went first and they've been able to ramp. Or at the very least, they're just brawling it away. So I would have expected this to be super inconsistent, and then obviously as the game goes on, like even Zeus in the Steel decks is just one-shotting this, so it's not like you just have to worry about Ruby. To help us control the board, we've got 4 Maui, 3 Medusa, 2 Gaston, who's also going to hopefully help us find those key items when we need them, a couple of Kuzcos to get rid of dimes and locations, and then LeFou, obviously great synergy, reusing the Prince John, reusing the Triton, or just keeping characters safe, Cruella de Vil, evasive, Gaston hitting for 4, and again the +4 we can get from Potion of Might. The only card I questioned was the Noi, 2-cost inkable, 1/2, quest for 2. While you have an item in play, this character gains resist 1 and ward. I mean, it's a nice little aggressive quester, but the pilot did mention in that article, the Forbidden Mountain one that I mentioned, that they would cut this for a second poison apple, which I absolutely agree with. Not necessarily for, like, the princess effect, which obviously can come up and can be cool to have, but being able to exert things that fall into none of these categories, like any of the Merlin cards, and there's decent allies in format as well. So yeah, I think a second poison apple would definitely work, especially if you're forced to ink one with Tipo. So yeah, we've got a nice little engine here that if we can get going and keep the Prince John safe, then we can hopefully constantly remove the opposing threats. And then our aggressive questers are, well, we got the Noi, King Candy, Gaston, and Kuzco all questing for 2. And then we've got 2 copies of the Triton here, which can be a nice little game ender with pretty good reach. Overall, my issue is I just don't understand how this deck is consistently beating red-blue. I think that, like, ice block variants have so many ways of being able to just offset this. I don't understand. And the thing is that this person won a mirror match. Well, not a pure mirror match. We're going to look at the list in a moment. But the second place list is a standard Ice Cube Sisu variant, which I would have thought would have really had the advantage against this. And then there's one red-blue deck ice block variant in top 4 as well. I'm not sure if Mika had to face them as well. But while I don't get it, I love it. I think this is so innovative. I don't care how consistent it ends up actually being. Like, I definitely want to try this and have some fun with this because this looks super cool. Biasly, I really like the Poisoned Apple as well, so I had the excuse to play it. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, I kind of don't understand how it's beating red-blue consistently, but it looks so fun, so cool. I'm a huge fan. Massive congrats to Mika. Alright, going on to second place, we've got Christian with that Ruby Sapphire Ice Block variant we were talking about. So yeah, pretty cookie cutter here. We've got the 3 Ice Block, we've got a 3/3 Sisu line, the 3-drop being the Daring Visitor that we're seeing more often than not, because just great synergy with the Ice Block. 2 Brawl and 3 Medusa to also synergize nicely with the Ice Block. We've got Tipo and Quill for ramp, also 2 copies of How Far I'll Go, which has dropped off a little bit so far in set 5, but I still think it's a super good card, especially when you're running 4 copies of Grand Martala for some more draw. 2 Kuzcos here to answer locations and get rid of those pesky dimes. We are seeing 4 copies of Vision of the Future, which is more or less staple, I think, in most usual variants of Ruby Sapphire, the Ice Block variants. I think the dig is just so insanely good. There was a post recently by Sailor, who's a very renowned player and something of a Ruby Sapphire expert, that they made on Twitter saying they think it might actually be the best card in set 5. I think that's Pete, personally, but this definitely top 3 for me, and I said it from day one, so yeah, super glad to see this card putting in some work. 2B Prep, which I think is fine with the 3/3 Sisu, and then you need 2 Vitalisphere as well to give us rush, help us get into range for bigger bodies like castles and Tamatoas if they're exerted. The 2 Dime, pretty standard suspects here, but huge congratulations to Christian. Then in 4th place, another Ruby Sapphire deck courtesy of Alex. Again, I'd love to know if the first place list had to go through 2 Ruby Sapphire decks to get their first place. I'd super love if anyone's watching that was at this tournament, I would love to know. But yeah, this one looking very similar to the list that we just looked at. We're not seeing those Vitalispheres, but we're seeing 3 copies of Develop Your Brain on top of Vision of the Future. Just more ways to help us find the key pieces when we need them. And sometimes our ink lines up in a way where we can only afford the 1. Like if you're at 10 ink, you can't do any more ramping for the turn. 1 Develop Your Brain still allows you to find the dime, put it down, and exert it. So there can be times where it matters. The 4th Daring Visitor Sisu in here, and the 3rd Be Prepared. Other than that, looking pretty much the same. So congratulations to Alex. Alright, in 3rd place, we've got Ernie with some SteelSong, which is consistently doing very, very well in set 5 format. We are seeing those 3 copies of Daisy Duck in here, who's not always in these SteelSong lists. Some people like Brennan DeCandio, who recently won the Charlie Collectible Shows event, and quite a lot of players that were playing SteelSong and that made top 16 in that event, opting to cut her. She can be a great card, and there's great synergy with the fact that even if they are drawing when you quest, if they get a character, if you're just playing Whole New World after that, then it doesn't really matter. But 3 copies here, along with 2 piglets to be nice aggressive questers. 4 Ballroom Sensation Cinderella. We are seeing those 2 Stout-Hearted Cinderella. I think it's so important to run at least 1, especially if you're in an event where you may make day 2, where it could be open deck lists. We've got 3 copies of Ursula Vanessa here to help us sing songs more easily. 4 copies of that Pete, which is just so game-breaking. If you can start a turn by singing Whole New World with your Naveen or your Prince John, and then you're able to put out 2, 3 big characters, well, like big questing characters, like a couple of daisies, piglets, Mr. Smees, whatever it might be, and then play a Pete so that you take away the option of things like Zeus, grab your swords, be prepared. That can be game winning. You still have to be careful of things like Under the Sea, or more prominently the Floodborn Sisu. But if the cards you're extending with are like the Smee and the Prince Naveen and the Robin Hood and the Pete, unless they've got multiple ice blocks down, then you're still providing them a lot to answer. 3 bare necessities here to snipe away those non-character cards. Pretty standard songs. Everything else looking pretty standard. Looks really good. Congratulations to them. Next up in top 8, we've got Jessie with some tech options in their build of SteelSong. We're seeing 3 Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, no Stout-Hearted, which, as I said, I think you should always be playing at least a Stout-Hearted if you're running the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, just so that you give that threat to the opponent that they may have to somewhat respect. We are seeing 2 copies of Daisy Duck. We've got a 3/3 Robin Hood line. Those 3 Ursula, 3 Smee, 4 Ariel. We're also seeing 2 copies of the Gaston Baritone Bully, who's the 3-cost 3/3 quest for 1, and Singer 5. We want to consistently be able to put down characters that can threaten these 5-cost songs. Some people would opt for the new set 5 version that's similar to this. I forget the name. It's popping up on screen at the moment. But she is a 2/3 that quests for 2. But I think the Gaston, the fact that it survives Brawl, it survives a lot of, like, there's a lot of characters or cards that care about 2 strength, like Brawl and Cloud Kicker. So yeah, I actually would rate this Gaston over that. We've got 4 copies of Lawrence here, just nice aggressive beat stick. We are seeing those 2 copies of Pete, 2 copies of Hades as well in here, which if you're running like lower counts of things, trying to fit into more tech options, then Hades makes a degree of sense to be able to fish them back out when you need them. 3 Rapunzel, 3 of that Chen Po to be a big old bodyguard, great stat line. 2 copies of Perdita here as well, who I really like. We've got a nice assortment of characters that are 2 strength or less here, so bringing out the right one, because either we want to quest aggressively with Daisy, or we want the stats on Mr. Smee, or we want to threaten Robin Hood to potentially shift into a Floodborn Robin Hood. Again, this is another reason why I would want the Stout-Hearted in here, because then just bringing back the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella could provide you that shift line. We've got 2 Tinkerbell here, 1 copy of Be Our Guest to help us find a specific character. Again, we're running more characters at lower counts, so I can see the reasoning behind this to want to play, fish out the right one at the right time. My only problem with it is that we're only running for 3 copies of Let the Storm Rage On, which I think is just too good not to run in 4s personally. But I wouldn't necessarily cut the Be Our Guest if you want to run this character package. The rest of the songs looking pretty standard. But yeah, really nice looking deck. I like the Gastons. I super like the Perditas. And I've always had a bit of a tendency for Hades, especially again in a wheel deck where you might be giving up very valuable characters that you want to be able to fish back out at the right time. But yeah, for me, Stout-Hearted Cinderella needs to find its way in here. And yeah, I think the 4th Storm Rage On, and then why not just go up to the 4th Ballroom Sensation Cinderella. But still, a really nice looking list. Congratulations to them. And our final SteelSong list from this event, again, very well represented, great performance. We have David. A lot tidier of a list here. I really like the 4 copies of Alana Dale. 4-cost Inkable 2/3 quest for 2, and whenever you play a song, gain 1 lore. And obviously singing songs is the name of the game. We've got a 4/3 Robin Hood. We've got a 4/2 Stout-Hearted, which I love to see, obviously. 4 Ariel. We've got 2 copies of that Prince Naveen. So lots of singers, big old song package in here. So while Alana Dale is on the board, constantly representing an extra lore, whenever you can sing in that turn, I think is really good. We are seeing those 3 daisies. 3 bare necessities, and 2 World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which, worth noting, none of these SteelSong lists playing the Queen line, which I think is super interesting. I've been high on the Queen for the last couple of formats, which is weird. I didn't like her that much in set 2, Rise of the Floodborn, when she first came out, which I think is when most people did like her, and now that people are going off of her, I really like her. I'm not just trying to be edgy on purpose, I promise. But even without the Queen line, the World's Greatest Criminal Mind, Big Sisu, Maui, Maleficent, Tamatoa, plenty of options, very viable targets that just gotta go, and opposing Stout-Hearted. So yeah, totally get it. List looks super nice. Congratulations to David. Alright, top 8, we have 1 Sapphire Steel deck. Nothing too out of the ordinary here. Our set 5 cards are the 4 Tipo, which is obviously fantastic extra ramp. 2 copies of Kuzco to get rid of those dimes and the annoying locations. Seeing the 4 Tamatoa, which I like to see. We got 2 copies of Bell here as well to be another really aggressive quester that we can threaten alongside the Lucky Dime. We got 2 Let It Go to be some additional removal. 4 Tinkerbell, yeah, Taylor's Oldest Time, really a really strong looking list, and I'm surprised that we've not seen it all that much so far this meta. But times could change. The DLC is approaching. Let's see how Sapphire Steel performs then, and then we'll judge it. But nonetheless, a great looking list. Congratulations to Andrew. And our final list for the top 8 of the player network, we have Derek with some Amethyst Steel Hyper Aggro. So this reminds me of the V Vonderland list that we featured on the channel nearer to the start of the season. And I know they've been streaming alongside Sky playing obviously Blue Steel, his bread and butter, and Vonderland using this, well, not this list, but his version of Amethyst Steel Aggro, which looks super fun. This list also utilising that Doc Bold Knight 2-cost uninkable 1/3 quest for 1. When you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. You can play this even if it's the last card in your hand. You don't have to have cards in your hand to play it. But yeah, super low to the ground. We've got a ton of 1-drops, 4 Chernobog and 4 Magic Broom for the getting through the deck, for the draw. 4 Maleficent Biding Her Time to be an aggressive quester for Pascal. Obviously that evasive can be annoying. We've got 2 Captain Hook here to help control the board a bit. We're also running 3 copies of the new Mickey Mouse, who's a 1-cost inkable 1/2 quest for 1 and resist 1. So in many situations he is a 1/3, or in some situations like he can live even more than 3 if they're only doing one thing at a time. One damage at a time. But yeah, seems reasonable. I wonder if there are times where they wish these were just extra Captain Hooks. But yeah, cool. We've got 3 Snake and 4 Fox and 4 Goat is our bounce package. 1 copy of Pinocchio as well is a 2-cost uninkable 1/1 quest for 3. 4 Smee for great stats. Lawrence with them stats. We've got 1 copy of Tiana, Celebrating Princess. While exerted, if you have no cards in your hand, your opponent can't play action. So a nice little one-off out of nowhere that our opponent might not be expecting to just shut off those action cards. 4 copies of Fire the Cannons to help us control the early game. 4 copies of Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom for that immediate gain 2 lore. 4 of the Amethyst Chromacon for some card draw, and 3 copies of the Library. This seems super consistent, really quick. The Amethyst Chromacon and the Dock are just going to allow us to get through cards so quickly. And like if we can get the Library online alongside Chernobog's Followers and Magic Brooms. And like we're going to be drawing so many cards, and we're going to be dropping Gathering Knowledge and Wisdoms and Pinocchios. And yeah, this looks stressful to play against. But yeah, well done to Derek taking it to top 8. Congratulations to them. Alright, moving on to our second event in Sweden, 64 players. In first place, we've got Sander with some EA Tempo, just win the game. Now, I looked at this list, this exact list, in the last video, and I remember saying, I like all of these cards. All of these cards are very good, but it just didn't seem consistent enough. And I've since realised it's Earlmeister's deck, fellow content creator and friend of the channel. Great guy, really, really great player, someone that I respect a lot. I'm sorry though, Eric, I just don't get it. Like, it just doesn't seem consistent enough. Like, there's just not enough 4s here for me. But Eric's been doing really well with it online, and we saw it top an event the other day. Here it is again, and I think like the 4th place list is exactly the same. So yeah, for 1-drops, we've got 2 Rafiki to give us a little board control, 2 Cogsworth to give rush. We've got 4 of that Clarabelle to banish items, and we are running 3 copies of the Floodborn, so we can get that online. Our bounce package is 4 Snake, 4 Fox, 3 Crab, 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit. That seems fine to me. 4 copies of Bonsai, who is so well statted. And I did say the other day that I think maybe 4 is too many, just because of its uninkability. But I've changed my mind on that. I think it's probably, like, Bonsai just seems super, super good. We've got a 2/2 Mother Gothel line, which I do like, so that you have answers to things like Tamatoa that just gotta go, or Big Sisu. But there is an argument to just raising your count of your welcome, or potentially even finding room for We Don't Talk About Bruno. But at least the Floodborn Mother Gothel I like. It's just another nice big body that you can put down. We've got 1 copy of Kit Cloud Kicker, 2 Lull Tiberius Rock that I'm a big fan of. I just want to see more of them. 2 Elsa to exert a character on play, Russian evasive. 2 Cricky, who's got great stats, giving Challenger 3 to your entire board on play is pretty cool. 2 of the Sea Witch Queen, who is super good at the moment, just being able to lock down your opponent from exerting songs. I'd like to see 3 of her, to be honest, just to give you a better SteelSong matchup. And then 4 friends, 2 You're Welcome, 1 the Library, 2 Queen's Castle, and 1 of that Emerald Chromacon. I'd like to know how often Cogsworth is relevant. And I'd like to know how often this Elsa is super relevant as well. I suppose the Elsa is one of your only evasive answers, and you can boost it with Cricky. I just prefer giving Reckless to, like, evasive things like Diablos, whatever it might be. Yeah, I'd definitely like to switch some counts around. But like I said, I like all of these cards, and it took Sander to first place, so can't argue with the stats, so congratulations to them. And here in top 4, we have the exact same list. So, yeah, congratulations to them as well. Next up in second place, we have Simon with some lemon and lime aggro. Hey, I said it all along. It's only going to take the right tournament and the right bracket, and aggro could absolutely do the business. We've got 4 of those Daisy. We've got 4 Lilo and 1 Curse Merfolk, which I get the argument behind that is because we're running a Clarabelle line. We've got 2 of the 1-drop, 4 of the 3-drop, and 4 of the Floodborn. And if you're making your opponent discard cards, then that's kind of counterproductive to the Clarabelle. But matchup dependent, you should still have an easier job of lowering your own hand size, even if you're just drawing 2 or 3. And we have Rapunzel's here. So yeah, I get it, but I don't know. I feel like I'd want to weigh a bit more into the Merfolk potentially. 4 Pegasus, 4 Piglet, a great aggressive line. Ursa to get rid of songs. We got Donald and Baloo, who are both bodyguards, and Baloo represents 2 lore, and Donald Duck is an extra lore pip. 3 Kick Cloud Kicker to control the board. We have got a 4-3 Queen line to give us a bit more board control, which is nice and help us against locations. 3 copies of Pegasus to shift onto the 1-drop. We've got 2 copies of Chernabog in here as well, which makes a lot of sense to me. We should go through characters very quickly and be able to have this online. And then 3 copies of Hey Hey, 3 cost Inkable 2, 3 quests for 2. And on play, if your opponent has more cards in their inkwell than you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. So yeah, I think you just ink to 3. Yeah, you ink to 3, but you don't put this down on 3. You put down a different 3-drop, Baloo, Donald, or Clarabelle, or just extend with 1 and 2 drops. Let them get above you, and then you play the Hey Hey. And the following turn, you are just 1 ink off of your Clarabelle, but you didn't have to ink a card actually from your hand. I'd love to know how many red-blue decks they fought, because I feel like they should probably really struggle against them. But hey, aggro can just win the game. So huge congratulations to Simon. All right, top 4, we've got our one and only SteelSong deck from this event, with, again, some spice. Most of the deck looking pretty standard. We're seeing 2 copies of the 1-drop uninkable Daisy Duck, but also 2 copies of the 1-3. Just 2 copies of Pete. We are running 3 copies of Stout-Hearted Cinderella. We got 1 copy of Be Our Guest, 2 Chen Po, and then Whole New World Strength and Storm. We're not running Zeus or Grab Your Swords. But we are running 3 copies of Zero to Hero, just like that. 2 cost uninkable. Count the number of characters you have in play. You pay that amount of ink less for the next character you play this turn. It's a song as well. And we're also running 2 copies of Mirabelle Madrigal. 5 cost inkable, 5/5, quest for 5. And you can't play this character unless you have 5 or more characters in play. So that's the reasoning behind wanting to play these 1-3s, I guess, and just have more 1-drops, although I would argue maybe just go to the 4 Daisy, the Donald State Daisy. But yeah, I don't get it. I'd love to know how many times this was actually played, and then how many times it actually survived long enough to quest for 5. The Zero to Hero is interesting, being able to like get down an early Tinkerbell or an early Cinderella Stout-Hearted. I will say though, I did catch a bit of one game that this person had. I'm not sure what round it was, but they were going up against Ruby Amethyst. And they got the, I think, turn 3 Stout-Hearted Cinderella down. But their opponent had a crab on the board. So they couldn't turn the Cinderella Stout-Hearted sideways because 1 fox, it's gone. But again, over 60 players, made all the way to top 4. So I would love to know if it was just to make a case of, hey, this Zero to Hero and Mirabelle actually came in the clutch a lot. Or if the rest of the deck just did what it could always do well enough that this player was still, through skill and perseverance, able to make it all the way through to top 4. So yeah, if you're watching, first of all, well done. Secondly, I'd love to know how many times you actually got Mirabelle down and how many times she actually quested for 5. But nonetheless, top 4 gave us something very interesting to talk about. Huge congratulations to them. Next up in top 8, we've got a Ruby Sapphire deck, very similar to the ones we've looked at already in this video. We are seeing 2 copies of that Ruby Chromicon that we talked about earlier, which can just fix math for certain things. 3 Vision and 3 Develop Your Brain. The full 4/4 Sisu line. Pretty cookie cutter here, but huge congratulations to them. And then our final Ruby Sapphire deck of the video, another kind of spicy one. We've got Shield. So this deck reminiscent of the winning deck from DLC Bologna, using that Queen that we were talking about earlier. 3-cost Inkable, 3/3 quest for 1. On Exert, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Put an item that you find into your hand, but if it's 3 cost or less, you can put it straight into play, which is all of our items except Lucky Dime. And we are running 4 copies of Maurice's Workshop, which is a 3-cost uninkable item. Whenever you play another item, you pay 1 to draw a card. So really playing into the item synergy that is already there, courtesy of Flaversham, Tamatoa, Lucky Dime. So we've got additional items here, running the full 4 ice block, and we are running a 3/3 Sisu line. 4 Brawl, no Medusa. Is certainly interesting. We've got the 4 Porp, the 4 Fishbone, but then some spice. We're playing 1 copy of Scrooge's Top Hats, 2-cost uninkable item. Exert, you pay 1 less for the next item you play this turn. Which, I mean, again, this can absolutely rack up, again, especially because you're paying the cost of the item, and then you're paying 1 to draw a card with Maurice's Workshop, which, hey, is not a lot. Like, 1 to draw is great. But, hey, if you don't have to pay for the item you put down, or you're at least paying less for it, then great, we can do even more with our turn. And then 2 copies of Basil's Magnifying Glass. 2-cost Inkable. Exert and pay 2. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. We are running 4 copies of Scuttle, who obviously with this many items should be online a lot. And yeah, this is very similar ability, except you're only looking at the top 3 cards of your deck. But this is on an item which in and of itself has synergy with the Tamatar and the Flaversham and the Scrooge's Top Hat and the Maurice's Workshop. But it's something that you could just utilize every turn and help you dig closer and closer to the item that you're looking for, which a lot of the time is going to be the dime, but just helping you get more items so that you can extend, boost up Tamatoa's lore. Super cool. We've got 2 copies of Queen of Hearts for the early game, 3 Maui, 2 B Prep, 2 Let It Go, 2 Kuzco. So yeah, Medusa missing here, but hey, you've got to lose some cards to make room for these extra items, especially because like the Maurice's Workshops are uninkable. And you've got a 3/3 Sisu line, you're running 4 Brawl, you've got the full 4 ice block. I think it's reasonable. So yeah, super cool looking list. Congratulations to them. Alright, our last 2 decks, moving into top 8, we have the first of 2 Ruby Amethyst lists. Not bad going, Ruby Amethyst haters out there. Only 2 is not bad, covering 2 events. So a lot of this looking pretty by the numbers. We are opting for the 4 Chernobog's followers, 3 Magic Broom, but also 2 Rafiki in here, which again, just great stats and just an extra 1 drop. I think it's great. 4 Snake, 4 Fox, 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit, pretty standard. That's the Ice Cream Man. I need to get Ice Cream one day. We are seeing the full 4 Crab, which I absolutely rate. I think these are super strong at the moment. We're on 2 Medusa, 4 Brawl. We are seeing those 2 B King Undisputed, 3 B Prep, 4 Queen's Castle, and then yeah, a super interesting lineup of Sisus. We're running 3 copies of the Floodborn Sisu, and then for shift targets, we've got 2 copies of the Emboldened Warrior and 3 copies of the Daring Visitor. Now, my current Ruby Amethyst list is playing 2 big Sisu, and then 4 of the Emboldened Warrior and 1 Daring Visitor. I like the 1 Daring Visitor along with the 4 Emboldened Warrior. I would always go with the 4 Emboldened Warrior first though, because I'm playing Flynn, which this deck isn't. But even without Flynn, I honestly think 3-drop Sisu is one of the best 3-drops in the game, the Emboldened Warrior. I think she's so well statted, so I would absolutely go to 4 of these. But yeah, like a one-off Sisu, I really like. You're hitting the Flaversham, the Daisy, the Rapunzel, the Ursula Vanessa, the list goes on. 3 does seem like a lot, personally, and I even think the 3 Floodborn is a lot, even though I'm on 2, and I've been debating just going down to 1, but I'm on 2 just like to increase the odds that you're going to see it. But hey, this deck running 3 of them and having 5 shift targets, those odds are going to be even better. And if you're up against things like EA Tempo, SteelSong, with a lot of characters that are already 2 strength or less, then you're going to have a field day. So yeah, super interesting. Congratulations to them. And our final list of the day, we got a whole bunch going on. We've got 1 Chernobog's followers, 3 Broom, 1 Olaf, 1 Mini, so 2 1/3s, and 2 Rafiki. Yeah, I suppose just hoping that you on your mulligan you can cherry pick the one that is more relevant to the game that you're in. I would just get annoyed though that like every time I want the Rafiki, it would be one of the other one. Every time I want the Chernobog's followers, it would be one of the other ones. But hey, 8 1-drops. We are running 1 copy of Pinocchio. This is another reason why I'd want to max out on the Rafiki counts if you want to play Pinocchio Pinocchio, because I think Rafiki Pinocchio is super good at the moment. We are running those 4 Flynn Rider, 4 Emboldened Warrior Sisu, and 1 copy of the Floodborn. 3 Medusa here. We've got 2 copies of Elsa and 2 Brawl. I'm coming around a lot more to the Elsa in Ruby Amethyst, since it was like pointed out to me of like it just sort of fulfilling the role of Brawl a lot better. And I know the argument can be like, okay, but if you're not playing Brawl and you're just playing Elsa, if they do the turn 2 Shift Diablo, they get like, especially if they're on the play, they draw 4 cards before you get to Elsa, and that's assuming that you don't play Rabbits or Friends. And that's true, but we just go 2-drop Snake or Flynn Rider, we go 3-drop Sisu or Crab, we go 4-drop Goat. So yeah, they draw 4 cards. Doesn't feel great. You know what other deck draws 4 cards quite easily? Ruby Amethyst Mirror. 1 rabbit, bounce, play it again, they've drawn 4 cards. I think you can come back from it. So yeah, I've done a bit of a 180 on Elsa. But yeah, list looks super good. I'd just like to see those Rafiki accounts maxed out to synergize better with the Pinocchio. But yeah, looks great. Looks great. Congratulations to them. And that's it for the top 8 deck lists from 2 separate events. Again, over 60 players each, which is a nice, respectable field. And yeah, always good to have some interesting decks to talk about. Well, we are just over 2 weeks away from the DLCs in Birmingham and Las Vegas. I can't wait for the events. I can't wait to see what does well. What decks are you enjoying playing at the moment? Let me know down in the comments. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support. And we'll see you soon.